This time I got a Sony SL2500 Betamax. This was a top-of-the-line machine before the hi-fi machines were developed. This was their top-of-the-line mono machine that Sony made. And then it was replaced with Beta Hi-Fi. Look what I got, a Betamax. This was left at my door, so we're going to have to remove that before I sell it. Alright. Now I don't have to keep blurring the guy's name on his personal information that he had on his VCR. Hopefully it's not anywhere else. Before I even plug this in, I'm going to pull it apart. Oh, there's a card on the bottom. What does this say? Repair tag. It went into a shop. Where did it go? So it had a repair tag on it. Looks like someone repaired it in December 29th. Is that 92 or 82? It must have been 92. $38.95. Probably had the heads cleaned. Because at the time we were doing heads for 30 bucks where I worked. So he paid too much if it was head cleaning. Let's pull the top off this unit and see what it does before I load up a tape. Don't know if it works or not. As I say, I know nothing about it. It was just left at my door, out in front of my garage. Came home from work the other day and there was a VCR, a Beta machine. Gonna get this one running and put it up for sale for anybody wanting a Beta machine for transferring tapes. These were actually not a bad machine. It's not a hi-fi machine, it's just a mono machine, but it had all the trick playback. It had slow motion and everything. Very complex machine. This was, well, you'll see. This one's got 5 motors in this one. Reel table, 2 reel table. Drum motor, capstan motor, loading motor, and front loader, so 6 motors. Looks like this one's never had the gears replaced on it. Well, maybe they were the plastic replacements. These always broke. They used to be white gears. They always split. But the repair kit that Sony released, they use metal gears. This one's got plastic gears, but they're black. So this may have been a later model that they upgraded them from the factory. They're not broken on this one right now, so that's a good sign, I guess. Before I plug the unit in, I want to flip open the little circuit board here so I can make sure that there's nothing broken. Gonna run the mechanism through its operation by hand. Oh, I'm gonna have to re-glue this. This is slipping. Look at this, my cheap. These weren't even cheap. These were expensive. That was these screwdrivers. Vessel. I paid quite a bit for this, about 40 bucks for this set. This is the one I glued onto the wooden handle. But watch what happens when I turn it. It's not turning the screw. It's the glue hasn't fractured because we can see the top is turning. See, if you look, the top is turning. But the shank is not. So right inside the screwdriver itself, it's slipping right here. And of course, now that it's glued in place, I can't even get at that. But god damn, that screwdriver's not working properly. Talk about cheap. You can see where it's slipping right there. Probably because I've got a lot more torque now with the wooden handle than you would have normally if you're just turning the metal shank. It's broken free. I wonder if it'll pull apart. Looks like it's going to pull right apart. What do you know? I guess I can throw some JB Weld down inside here and try to glue this back together. No time like the present to fix it. put the rest of this around the edge, around here. See if that'll help it. Alright, while that sets up, it's not that that screw is even in tight, it wasn't. But I just want to basically run the mechanism through by hand. I want to watch what the guides do, because some of these ones here, a lot of these ones, the main guide ring broke and guides broke off of it. So I just want to run this thing through its paces. That belt looks like it's pretty much worn out, but it should do the job. I just want to run it through and watch the guides pop up. There's one there that popped up. That one's good. And it looks like these might have been the replacement guides too. Yeah, they look to be the replacement ones. The original ones were set in plastic and they broke. So that part works. So far so good. I'll plug the machine in now and it should unload. As soon as I apply power to it, if it's going to power up, the mechanism should immediately unload. But it doesn't because it's dead. It's completely dead. So we got a power supply problem on this unit. Yep. That should have turned on and unloaded. But this unit's dead. Got a dead power supply. This one used a switching power supply. This was I think the first one. I think this is switching. Yeah, this is a switcher on this one. This was the first machine that used a switch mode power supply. Of all the VCRs, I think this was the first one. Panasonic might have beat them to the punch. But for the Sonys, this was the first one. And it was one of the few that used a switch mode power supply, because they went back to a linear regulator on all the other machines. They used a switch mode supply on the SL2500 and the SL2700, and we hated them. So here it is. It's been years since I've opened up one of these. Like back in the late 80s or early 90s would be the last time I saw one of these. You used to see a fair number of 2700s, which was the hi-fi version, and the 2710s that followed. But 2500 was not one that we saw an awful lot of. Primarily because it was not a hi-fi machine, and the hi-fi machines came out in a very short order after these ones hit the market. So let's going to probe around and see whether the switching power supply is actually operating or not. Okay, got 12 volts. This is on the secondary side, so it looks like the switching supply is running. 12 volts. So if that's running, the clock's not running. If the clock is not running, then chances are nothing else is going to turn on this unit. Is there a switch for timer on this by chance? Just hit the master reset button. If we check some of the voltages, like on the circuit, like for example, there's 12 volts here, that would go to the amplifier. There's a little socket down here for a booster, for an antenna booster. So that's got power. We've got power going to the main board. 5 volts is there. I'm going to put the cover back on the switching power supply just because it's hazardous. It seems to be, at this point, it seems to be working. So I'm just going to cover it up for now. It was an accessory I don't think that was ever available, but I guess there was a booster that was available that would have gone inside the case, and that would have been the power supply for it. This should lift up. There should be one more screw. I just want to take a look under this board. This one could be a little more work. Okay. Wonderful Sony with their wonderful orange modules that you'll never ever find. There's a fuse down here. There's a plug that's undone. What the heck's that from? Where did that plug come from? Maybe that's why it's not working. Maybe somebody was in here and they left something unplugged. This screw wasn't in all the way. That goes onto the tuner board. Oh, I see the looks like the memory backup is all leaked. I bet it gets leaked onto the board here and caused a problem. Yeah, I can see there's looks like there's liquid damaging around here. You see what I'm talking about? Whatever it is, it's corroded and it's leaked its contents. It's a battery, I think. Probably an old, either a rechargeable or it's a battery. But it's leaked. You can see the crap. I'm going to take that out of the circuit first. I will just cut it to get it out of here rather than unsolder it. So that has leaked onto the board. I can see where there's corrosion right down here on the board. That might be why it's not working. Try to scrape that out of the way if I can. I don't know that that's all that's wrong with this. Say this plug, I don't know where that plug goes. I don't even remember. It's been so long since I've worked on one of these units. I've forgotten more about these things. There's another fuse over here. I'm just going to check the fuses and see if any of the fuses are popped. So that fuse is okay, and that fuse is also okay. I laugh when I read comments from people saying the old machines were so much easier to work on. Those people that make those comments have obviously never worked on one of these machines, because these machines are not easy to work on. For one, they got a crappy double-sided board that breaks if you so much as sneeze on it. Volts. I think probably the reason it's not turning on though is more along the lines of the acid or whatever was in that battery. I don't know whether it was a lithium battery or what, probably a lithium battery, but the crap that came out of that battery is on the circuit board. You can see it right down here, and I bet you it's eaten away at the traces or caused a short. So I guess the first thing to do is just to wash that out and see whether cleaning that up will get the unit to operate. It's probably eating some of the copper. That card was on the bottom for a repair. That might have been an estimate fee. It may have gone into a shop and they said, "Oh, this thing's screwed," and charged $30 to $39 to tell them that it wasn't worth fixing. That very well could be what that was from. I still don't know where this goes. I'm looking to see if I can see. It should be a black plug, but these used a lot of these ugly. These are composite. These are called resistor ICs. Bunch of resistors and diodes and stuff, and they're all crimped on one end. There's a whole bunch of. They were terrible. These were just horrible. These ICs here failed all the time. These encapsulated boards. These failed. You can see these have got components on them that are under epoxy. They're an encapsulated part. You can't get any of these parts. This is the same as the old SL2000. You can't get any of those parts now. They weren't available, 25, 30 years ago. These parts weren't available, and they did fail. So it's unfortunate. I mean, this unit here might not be worth fixing, and I may just end up dumping it or doing something. Throw it in a corner as a parts machine. I have a 2500 that works that I'm going to sell because I don't have much use for it. But they're not worth a lot of money. That's the thing. Probably worth more than a VHS machine just because it's beta, and beta is hard to get. But they're still not worth a lot. They're only worth something to a specific buyer, someone who has beta tapes that they want to play or recover or transfer. That's the only time the beta machines are worth any money. I mean, sure, you'll see people putting them up on eBay asking $400 or $500. There's a guy right now on Facebook who's got an SL2000 listed for $500. Yeah, good luck. It's okay. There's somebody on Facebook that's got a non-working CCD V5000 that is not working, and they're asking a lot of money for that too. And that camera would need probably 100 capacitors replaced in it. Not worth $10, never mind what someone's asking. So I'm just going to get a toothbrush with some alcohol. We'll scrub away in that area of the board where all that corrosion is and see if we can get rid of it. Okay, we'll flip up this board. I just want to take a look underneath the board here and see if there's anything else that looks questionable. This is the system control board, this one. There is another fuse over here too. Can I see that one? It shows another fuse on here. There's another fuse over here, 0.5 amp. Let's just measure that one. I guess it's hidden by some wires and stuff. But there is another fuse, but it's good. That one's good, and that one's good, and this other one that we already tested is good. So no blown fuses. This is the system control, and capstan servo and drum servo is on here. SS board, as they call it. Real motors. This is the motor drive, and the motor drive IC. System control is here. This is likely where the fault is right where that damage is. Right in here is where the damage is on the other side of the board. System control. That would certainly explain why it's not turning on. I still don't know where that plug goes. Might go onto this bottom board. I don't have a manual for one of these units, so I can't just go look it up and see where it goes. My chances of finding a manual for this is slim to none. Looks like there's some traces that are damaged on the top here. This is likely where my problem is there's some eaten copper right down in here. If I zoom the camera in, see where the battery acid was. These are through connectors that go through to the other side of the board, and they look like they are corroded. Like this one here, for example. This is where all that crap was right in here. This is likely where our fault is right in this area here. See, the copper's quite badly pitted. I'm sure we've got traces that are open. So these were not great boards to begin with. And once you've had acid sitting on it for who knows how long, it certainly doesn't do the board any good. I'll try resoldering that area of the board and just see if I can bridge over it. And maybe that'll breathe some life into this thing. I'm not holding my breath now that I'm going to get anywhere, and quite frankly, I'm probably not going to spend all that much time. If I can get it working, great. If I can't, well, I may give up on this sooner than people would like. Just because it's mine, I know there's no money in it. There's not much chance of finding somebody to buy it. I'll watch everybody come out of the woodwork and say that they'd buy it from me. I get lots of people that offer to buy stuff from me, and when I say sure, I'll sell it to you, I've yet to see any money from anybody that's on my channel that sends me an email saying they want to buy something from me, and I've yet to see any money from anybody. Lots of people, lots of big talk. Yeah, it's so corroded that the solder won't even stick to it. Stinks. The smoke coming off this from the whatever leaked out of that battery is pretty pretty nasty stuff. Just the fumes coming off it from heating up the board. See, the problem also could be on the timer, because on this machine, if I remember correctly, if the timer isn't working, the machine itself will not turn on, because it controls the power, like for doing timer recordings. And if the clock doesn't start up, if I remember correctly, and I really don't remember correctly because it's been so bloody long since I worked on one of these, but I seem to recall that if the clock wasn't operational, that the unit itself wouldn't turn on. And the clock display is dead, so I'm wondering if there's something maybe on the clock board that's also bad. Take the front panel off. Now I can get to the clock board, which is in behind here. See, that wire comes from the clock board, but I don't know what it plugs into. I don't know whether it was for a battery backup for the clock or what the heck this was for. You would expect that there would be a connector that it would plug into, but I don't see one. Anyway, forget how this lifts out. Like the clock should light up no matter what. Unless it's something still back at the power supply, like one of the supplies is missing for this, which is still a possibility because of the short circuit that happened. This should light up. It's not. So I've been checking voltages coming off the power supply. Here's our wires coming out of the power supply here, and I've got 12 volts. I don't have any 5 volt supply though. I've got 12 volts. What's this one got on it? 0. Here's our 12 volt rails. At 0.2, I think that's probably supposed to be a 5 volt supply. And this one here is, although some of these voltages will not be on until the unit is turned on. And this one's a 15 volt rail over here. I might be missing a 5 volt supply. Again, I don't have a schematic for this unit, so that's a 0.2. I don't know if that's a 5 volt supply or not. I have a sneaking suspicion that should be a 5 volt supply. I'm about ready to condemn this one. It's something on this system control board. It's not the power supply. I know that because I can force the 5 volt line that I saw was not 5 volts. It's actually switched. It's a switched 5 volt line from the power supply. It is commanded on from the system control, which is not turning on. If I force that 5 volt line to 5 volts, I get the power light and the unit turns on, but it doesn't do anything because system control is not working. I can get the power to come on, but nothing else runs because system control is not running. It's going to be that board is damaged, and I don't know whether I'm going to be able to get that board running or not. I think it's probably pretty unlikely that I'm going to be able to get this running, just because there's traces that are damaged. There's traces that go underneath this IC that are damaged as well. The acid that leaked out of that battery went into the board. It's damaged traces on both sides because it's soaked into the board as well. Probably if I were to pull the chip out and rebuild all the traces and put jumpers in, it might work, but the amount of work required to make this thing work is much more than I'm willing to put into it. So I think this one here is just going to be scrapped, put as a parts machine, or sell it for parts, or just keep it as a parts machine. It does have probably a good head drum, which would be usable. So I think at this point I'm just going to throw this one together, put it into my storage locker, and it'll sit there, and I might need it for parts. That's just not worth repairing. Thanks for watching.